Okay. I'm not really going to do any more of an introduction of myself because I have a time management problem, and this is probably going to be way too long. So I don't want to bore you with details about my life. If you have any questions about me and my background, you can ask me later. I'm going to jump right in and get started. I will tell you that you're going to be seeing a lot of art up here. This is not intended to be an art history lecture. If you want to go to the museum with me sometime, let me know. We'll plan a field trip. If you have questions about the art, that's great. I'm glad that you're interested in it. Ask me afterwards, because we're going to focus on creativity today. So I think that's it for the lead up. The first thing that I would like you all to do is look under your chairs, and everybody has a blank piece of white paper under their chair and some things to write with. Grab your blank piece of white paper. Grab something to write with, preferably a big fat marker, which you should all have at least one of. Oh, I need a whiteboard.
I see your whiteboard.
You see my whiteboard? Thank you. Excuse my informality. I realized I was gonna like want to start to write soon, and then wasn't sure. I once taught an art history class. The PowerPoint was not working, and I had to draw all of the pictures on the chalkboard while I taught about them. It lasted for about 15 minutes, and it was too much like Pictionary. Oops, pull this in the middle. Okay, do you all have your white paper? Yes. And a marker? Yes. All right. I'm going to ask a question. The question is, do you consider yourself to be creative? And I want you to write yes or no on your paper. And write it big. Okay, everybody write your answer? Okay. If you said that you're not creative, if your answer was no, hold up your sign. Not sure? Okay. No, a no back there, a no here, a no here. I'm not sure. Okay. Why? Why are you not creative?
I wish that I was. I don't know. I feel like I get very lost when I don't have direction.
Okay, so you need direction. Why? Are you not sure?
I used to feel very creative.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like that's...
What did it feel like to be creative?
Easier.
But what do you mean when you say you felt creative? What did that mean?
Like I had more like ideas or creativity, or I could think of words.
Okay. Why do you think you're not creative?
Kind of along the lines of her. I need structure, or at least have done something before, and then I can. Unless I've done something before or have a structure with it, it's not working very well.
Was it Stephanie in the back who was holding? Why are you not creative? Okay, did everybody else say yes? Is there anybody that had something other than a yes or a no besides the question mark over here? What did you have? You had a maybe? What was your hesitation? Moments. What are the moments when you're not feeling creative feel like?
Like I wish I could be more creative, more curious, more...
Okay. People who said that you're creative, and you can just shout stuff out, because there are more of you. Why did you say that you are creative? What about you is creative? I'm sorry, what was the second thing you said?
How things look like more visually creative or systematically creative.
Is there a creative way to solve a problem and a not creative way to solve a problem?
There's, I guess, a typical way to solve a problem, and then maybe more an inventive way to solve a problem.
Why else? Other people that feel creative, yes.
I think when you grow up with lack of money,
Mm-hmm.
you have to come up with a creative solution to get what other people get easily.
Okay, so resources limited. I'm writing on this board creatively. Other reasons why you feel creative. Spontaneous. Not tall enough. Other reasons why you feel creative.
I think a lot of it comes down to confidence too. Sometimes the creative pieces may not be like you need to speak more to get that idea heard.
Okay, so things that we associate with creativity. Solving problems, being spontaneous, being confident, not needing structure or direction, having limited resources, having ideas, having imagination, being inventive, being curious. Anything we want to add to this?
Wanting recognition, wanting appreciation.
If that makes you creative?
I think it drives you to do.
Drives you, motivation. You need incentive, motivation. Anything else you want to add to this?
Sometimes it's like you enjoy not being told what to do. You like being on your own.
You like being independent. Independence.
Yeah.
I wrote too big.
Sometimes you like to do something for no reason at all. Maybe the opposite.
So let's see. So yeah. We might call it because you enjoy it or you feel like it, right? Okay, yes.
I was telling my daughter this today
Mhm.
that I thought that when you have creativity, it's like having $1 million in your pocket because you can do anything creative.
And did somebody in here have something else? Thought I saw something. Okay. So this is a good start. I'm going to tell you what my working definition of creativity is. Okay. Creativity, the kind of creativity I'm talking about, is the ability to view things from new perspectives, to break out of established patterns, to generate new possibilities and new alternatives. Let me ask you a question. You're not creative,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Did you wear that scarf yesterday?
No.
Do you only have that scarf?
No.
Did you choose to wear that scarf today?
Yes.
You were creative. Did you cut your own hair?
Actually, yes.
You did! That's creative! It wasn't even the answer that I was expecting, but that's creative. Most people wouldn't do that. Who else said? You said you weren't creative. Why'd you get orange sneakers?
That's creative.
You're the only person wearing them. That is creative. We all make creative decisions in our lives all the time, whether we know it or not.
But isn't that when you get dressed?
Isn't it what?
You get dressed.
You get dressed, but you don't have a closet full of the same clothes. Okay? So you have to make a decision, right? And if you wore the same thing every day, you would not be creative in the way that you got dressed. But if every day you're getting up and you're not following a pattern, then that's creative. I'm not saying not everybody is creative in the way they dress themselves. I had a professor in college who had probably 6 of the same shirt in different colors, and I don't know how many of the same pants he had, but they were all the same color. And every day he wore the same shirt and the same pants with the different color. But I think, he probably didn't have any choice. It was probably like he put on what was clean. He was not a creative dresser, but he was probably creative in other ways. And that's the thing. Creativity is not just one thing. There are a lot of different ways to be creative. And, a lot of you said that you are creative. That's awesome. What I'm hoping that you'll get from today, if you already feel creative, and certainly if you don't feel creative, is to get some ideas about how you can tap into your creativity even more, or different ways that you can be creative, that maybe you're not being creative now. Oops, wrong way. I was asked if I knew how to use this and already messed up. Everybody's an artist. It's just that they're inhibited, okay? If I had asked the question, how many of you are artists? Raise your hand if you would have said yes. 3. 3.5 out of the room. Artists, you're all artists. If you're creative, you have the capacity to be an artist, okay? It's one and the same. All artists do is express their creativity all the time because that's part of what they have to do. But it's not because they were born with something that you don't have, because they do it all the time. They have to do it. Yes? Talent's a totally different thing. You might not be good at something, right? But you could still try it, and you could still think of a different way to do it. Talent and creativity sometimes go together, and when they go together, can result in something fantastic. But they don't have to go together. You can use your creativity in, whatever way that you have to. And I would argue, actually, against the notion that there are inborn talents anyway. I think that we're all capable of doing pretty much anything. And a lot of it is, the way that we grow up and the circumstances that we're in and the resources that we have. And there are all kinds of things that shape what we're good at and what we're not good at. The neural connections that are made when we're children drive a lot of that. Because your brain's constantly developing. And if you're doing one thing all the time and you're doing another thing never, then your brain is going to start to close off those neural pathways of the thing that you're not doing. Okay, but that's talent and creativity do not need to go together. That was basically my whole point there. Okay, people who aren't artists. Why aren't you an artist? What are our inhibitions? Why would you not call yourself an artist? What does an art, yes?
I guess I don't create things that would stimulate the senses.
What else?
Well, I have friends who literally have to wake up and write.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who get up every day. It's almost
It's like they have to do it. There's something inside of them that is forcing them to do it. Mm-hmm. But not all artists have that experience. Some of them do, some of them don't. We'll talk about that in a minute. Were you going to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like artists, if you're an artist, you have an audience. Like people will know you're an artist.
Is anybody here, if I handed you all a piece of paper and a pen and said, draw me a picture, would you feel comfortable doing that? Would anybody not feel comfortable doing that? Why not?
Well, I would ask you, what do you want me to draw?
Okay.
Redirection.
We're back to directions. Okay. Yes.
Can't draw more than like sticks.
Can't do it. Okay. This list is getting. Don't do that. Don't. This is supposed to be why we're not artists. Don't have passion. Don't have an art. This is a very don't list. Okay. That's okay because it's why we're not artists. Why else do you not consider yourselves to be artists? What do artists do that you don't do? Yeah.
Anything that I could make, an artist could make it better. Like more aesthetically pleasing, cooler,
Okay.
more stimulating. Yeah. Rearrange reality. And do you feel like you don't have the capacity to do that?
See, I was going to say also something a little bit different. I feel like they kind of to the rearranging reality. They see reality, they interpret it one way, and then represent it a different way that makes sense with everybody else. I feel like if I tried to do that, everybody would be like, what? That doesn't make sense. Like, then it
What?
was like beautiful or something.
Okay.
I'd be like,
So people would question
yeah.
what you had come up with.
There's so many ideas that I want to know. What is this? Like, I don't get it.
Abstract.
Mm-hmm.
They thought they did, but I didn't get it. Or I don't know.
That's true. We'll talk about some of that too. Like I said, artists are people that use their creativity all the time. That's what makes them artists, right? If people who don't consider themselves to be artists are inhibited, there's a lot of reasons that we might come up with of what's standing in your way, what's standing in the way of you being an artist, of you conceiving of yourself as an artist, or of you just being creative in general. Why are you not being creative? Or if you are being creative, why aren't you being more creative? Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple of these reasons why we're people, and I'll use it broadly, are inhibited by being creative. A lot of people will say, well, creativity is for children. It's not for adults. It's about playing. It's about pretending. It's not about serious things. It's not about work. It's not about real life stuff. And that's not true, right? Because creativity can help all of us. I mean, I erased that before, but we had up here, what did you say? It's like $1 million in your pocket. You can do anything with it. Creativity can address real world issues. It can help you to become more empathetic. It can help you to solve problems. It can help you to come up with alternate solutions. It leads to innovation. So, playing, if that's something that children do and it requires creativity, then sign me up. Let's play. Everything would be more fun and we'd come up with better stuff. Okay? So, you're an idiot if you can't visualize a man galloping on a tomato. Some people say, I don't have time to be creative. Has anybody here ever thought, like, I don't have time to be creative? Or like, yeah, I don't have time to be creative. I got other stuff to do. Okay? Creativity is not something that you carve out time to do because it's something that you want to be. Okay? It's a state of being. And it's a way of thinking, and you can think creatively all the time. Right? It's not, has anybody here ever said, I'm going to carve out some time today to think logically? No. Right? Creativity should be the same way. It should just be, I don't want to say should. Creativity is, if you're using it to your greatest potential, the way that you think about everything all the time. Does that mean that you're not thinking about things logically? No. You think about things logically when you need to. You think about things creatively when you need to. And those parts of your brain work together to come up with solutions. It's not like, you're one or the other. You can do both at the same time. And a lot of times, in fact, being creative will save you time because it'll help you come up with better solutions that are more efficient, that are more time-saving. Some people might say, well, I don't need to be an artist. I don't need to be creative. Does anybody here feel like in your job you don't have to be creative? Excellent. So tell me, what about your job is creative? How do you have to be creative at your job?
Well, convincing people to, get something done. Sometimes happens in creative ways.
Creative. How else?
Problem solving.
Problem solving. How else? Yes.
I think when the shit hits the fan, you have no choice but to be creative.
But to be creative. Okay? So this goes back to you're creative all the time and you might not know it. Okay? So you're doing things all the time that require you to see things in new ways, to break with established patterns, and to generate new possibilities. You're doing that all the time with your work. And if you could tap into it more, right, if you could find ways to expand that, to dig deeper into that, then you could do all of those things even better than you already do. Another reason why people might be inhibited is say, well, I don't know how to be creative. Nobody ever taught me to be creative. At least, do you ever feel like that? Right? Nobody, when I was little, nobody taught me to be creative, and those neural pathways that are about creativity just went away. They closed, they shut down, and that was it for me. I will never be creative again. It's not true. No one needs to teach you how to be creative. We've just said this like 6 times now. I'm risking being repetitive. Or no, I'm not even risking it. I just am being repetitive. We all have creativity. It's what we do with it that makes the difference. It's whether we recognize it, how we cultivate it, and then what we actually do with it. So, if you're saying I'm not creative, or I don't feel creative, or I'm not sure if I feel creative, or sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, I want you all to feel creative all the time. Because it's a state of being. It's a way of thinking. Okay? So it's not something that you turn on and off. It's just something that you are because you're thinking in this certain way. Finally, a huge reason why a lot of people do not tap into their full creative potential is fear. Creativity takes courage. Okay? What are some things that we might be afraid of in terms of our creativity? Yeah. Failing, yes. What else?
Sometimes going out of the box, you might not necessarily resonate with everybody, or your fear of what people might say if it's not the norm. Don't fear.
No, but that is absolutely true. So failure, so
How we might look.
going outside the box, ridicule, criticism. Has anybody here ever had an idea that you didn't share because you thought, like, people are just going to think this is crazy? Raise your hand if you've ever felt that way. Does anybody want to share that idea right now? Really? Nobody? I have a problem. I share all of my ideas, no matter how crazy they are. And sometimes I backtrack and I go, yeah, that's not, forget I said that. But I always share them because you never know when you share your idea what's going to happen, right? Somebody else could pick it up and run with it and do something amazing, right? You can't be afraid to share your ideas. The thing that you think, unless it's like, I have an idea that I should like kill everybody in the room, that's a bad idea. But most ideas are not just outright bad, okay? There are a few that are, but most of them aren't. So no matter how afraid you are to share your idea, right? Do it anyway. Share your idea anyway, because you never know what's going to come of it. Yeah.
But if you're creative,
Mhm.
like that act of sharing creativity be situational, because you might end up distracting you're at a meeting, end up distracting. Because if creativity comes naturally,
Mm-hmm.
you are overworking that muscle.
No, there's no such thing as overworking your creativity muscle. This is not like exercise. You cannot overtrain your creativity muscle, and your creativity muscle does not need any rest and recovery. Your creativity muscle needs the opposite of rest and recovery. Your creativity muscle, the more you use it, the bigger and better and more creative that muscle is going to be. Okay? Yes?
Steve, I think you just said something that's very interesting. Because I think people who may not want to be artists anymore really want to turn that off.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of really looking forward to absolutely vegging out and not processing anything.
That's different. That's about turning off your thinking. You know, when I've had a really busy day and I don't want to, like, think anymore, I, go and watch 12 hours of television and don't get enough sleep and feel terrible the next morning when I wake up. But that's about thinking. That's not about being creative.
I actually wanted to make a slight point that challenges what you're saying.
Yes, please do. Creativity is about breaking the rules. Go ahead.
I feel like when one person, shares an idea and kind of gets the thinking out of the box, that kind of encourages other people to do the same type of thing. So I feel like maybe there is one aspect of someone's idea that kind of fits into like the missing piece of someone else's idea that kind of completes the picture. And without sharing, like all the ideas collectively, you're not going to get to a better place in the end. And I've seen that like in my thinking, where I can hear other people throwing out ideas about other things that I hadn't considered, and then once I consider them and kind of establish whatever I was thinking of, it kind of
How is that different from what I'm saying?
No, I'm saying it is.
Oh, it's the same.
I agree
Yes.
with that,
Yes, absolutely. I was going to say, well, because I agree with you. I don't see issue with that. That's true. You build off of each other's creativity. And that's another way to exercise that creativity muscle. It's like, a group cardio class is like, let's all get together and brainstorm together. Or let's all get together. And, in answer to your question about, like, what if you're in, like, a meeting and it's about something else? And, you need to think about what your circumstances are and what the right time to share your idea is. Maybe it's not in the middle of the meeting, because maybe it's going to take things off, but maybe it's after the meeting, or, at some other time that you feel is more appropriate. But fear. Any other reasons why you might fear being creative or sharing your ideas? Yes?
I might have stolen someone else's idea. Like, what if I don't know that I'm stealing someone else's idea? Or someone's already done it?
Already done. Yeah, that's a good one. Anything else? Okay. I'm going to talk about all of these things. You guys got pretty much everything that I'm going to talk about. But actually, I'm going to talk about something else first that's not on this list, that's a fear issue. Well, no, it's failure. It's actually the first thing on the list. Failure. Okay? We fear failure when we try something new. Because being creative is often about trying something new, thinking of something in a new way, right? And what if I mess up? What if I can't do it? What if I don't know how to do it? What if I try to do it and I still can't do it? What if I try to do it and it doesn't come out the way that it is in my head? What if I do it and it's all wrong, okay? Any of you ever had any of those feelings about things? About trying anything? Have you ever kind of wanted to try something and then not tried it for one of those reasons? Yes? If your answer is yes, say yes. Yes. This is participatory. I just spit. That's going to go great on camera. Okay. The best way to silence self-doubt is just to do it. That's hard. I know that's hard. Okay? But you need to find ways to convince yourself to try it. Try it when you're alone, and remember, we're talking about creativity here, okay? You're alone in a room, and you're by yourself, and you can try anything you want. Nobody's seeing you do it, right? What's the risk? There's no risk to that, okay? You try it, it doesn't work, you throw it out. You don't have to share your idea with anybody until you're ready to share your idea. Okay? I think you should share your idea. I think you should share your artwork if you want to make artwork, or your plan for a new system if you want to plan a new system, okay? But do it when you're ready. Do it when it's at the place that you need it to be at. If you hear a voice within you say, I cannot paint, paint. Vincent van Gogh, self-taught artist. Never had training in the arts, okay? And yet, on our list of artists that we all know, he's probably way up there. How many people, when I say Leonardo da Vinci, would think failure? Raise your hand if you would think failure when you heard of Leonardo da Vinci. No. Leonardo da Vinci is arguably the failingest artist of all time. Okay? What? Leonardo da Vinci? He was a master. He was great. He was the best artist that ever lived. He was a Renaissance man. Okay? The reason he was all those things is because he was not afraid to fail. And he did fail all the time. He tried new things all the time. Half of the things that he started to do, he never finished. Maybe even more than half of the things that he started to do. Some of the things he tried to do totally didn't work. Some of the things that he tried to do did work. The Mona Lisa and other paintings by Leonardo da Vinci uses a technique called sfumato that's about blending light and dark, right? It was a new technique. Leonardo thought it up. He's the one that got it out there. It went over quite well. Other people started doing it. But other things, the Last Supper, Leonardo decided, I'm going to experiment. I'm not going to do this like everybody else does wall paintings, where they use wet plaster so that when they paint on it, the pigments of the paint combine with the plaster and dry that way. Now, I'm going to try something else, because when you do it that way, you have to work really fast. You can't get a lot of details in there. I want my piece to be really detailed full. I want it to be full, colorful. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to paint wet. I mean, not wet, dry, the opposite of wet. I'm going to paint on a dry surface. And I'm going to use tempera paint, which is a dry paint. I'm going to use some oil paint. And he did it, and he wasn't thinking about the fact that he lived in a climate that is not good for this sort of thing. So what do you think started to happen? Any ideas what started to happen? The paint started falling off. Not very long after he made this work. He finished it, he's like, oh, this is great, everybody loves it, and it starts to fall off the wall. Okay? Over the years, lots of other terrible things happened to it. The church, the monastery that it was in got bombed, and there were other bad things that happened. But the first thing that went wrong with it was Leonardo's fault. Okay? Only 40% of Leonardo's original painting makes up the Last Supper. He had an idea to build a life-size equestrian statue out of bronze, which wasn't so unusual because people did that all the time back in the 16th century. But then his patron said to him, you know what, I want you to make it 4 times bigger. And Leonardo said, all right, I'll figure that out. I can do it. So he made all these sketches. He built a 22-foot clay model. Never built the statue. Didn't work. Couldn't figure out how to get a bronze 23-foot high horse rearing to stand up. Which never happened. And I could go on and on. There are lots of examples of this happening. So Leonardo, not afraid to fail. If you want to be a Leonardo, experiment. Okay? Try it out. You never know what's going to happen. It might fail, it might not. That's the thing with being creative and being an artist, is that you never know where something's going to go, right? You have an idea, you share your idea, it starts to turn into something else. Or you start to implement your idea, and it starts to turn into something else. Some people are afraid of that because it's unpredictable, right? Well, I don't know what's going to happen. Embrace that. Embrace that you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe something great is going to happen. In Japanese pottery, there's a long tradition of actually valuing imperfections, or what we might see as mistakes, in the pottery. If a bowl cracks, we're going to put it back together using gold. If a cup is in the kiln, or tea bowl is in the kiln, and the glaze runs funny, that's okay. These things make it more beautiful. Okay? The pot up at the top there, and I don't have a laser pointer, even though I forgot mine. But the pot up at the top there was actually pinched and worked to look imperfect. Okay? So not only is the idea that we embrace our mistakes, the idea is that we love mistakes. Let's try to make our stuff look irregular. Okay? So think about that. The next time you make a quote-unquote mistake, ask yourself, how could I look at this that it wouldn't actually be a mistake? And if you look and you look and you look, and you decide every which way that I look at this, it's still a mistake. It's horrible, it's terrible. The end. There's no way to embrace this mistake. Then you can start again. You can throw it out and you can start again. A friend of mine posted this painting, he's a painter, and he posted this on Facebook a few months ago. This right here. This, yes. Yeah, you can't see it when it, yeah. We tried it, but thank you. He posted this on Facebook, and I saw it, and I clicked like, and I was like, that's beautiful, you know? I thought it was a work in progress. And then I read what he wrote with it, and what he wrote was, I did this a few years ago. I thought it was terrible, so I took a picture of it, and then I sanded it down, and I painted on the panel again. Okay? So I think it's great. I wouldn't have considered it a mistake. I would have hung it on my wall. But it wasn't up to his standards. It didn't meet whatever criteria he had for himself. So he said, you know what? Sand it off, start again. Artists do this all the time. Okay? So don't be afraid to trash your ideas if you have to. Somebody said, I'm worried about stealing somebody else's ideas. Maybe it's already done. Maybe I'm not original enough to be creative. Maybe my idea is not original enough. Every single person in here is a unique person, right? You're all your own person. What does that mean? It means that you think uniquely. If you think uniquely, you're never going to think of the same exact thing as somebody else. Maybe in a general way, but not in the details. And you can, use that. It isn't about, am I stealing somebody else's idea? Everything is built on something else, okay? Reynolds, who did this painting right here, the big one, stole from all kinds of sources. He stole from Van Dyck. He stole from Michelangelo. He stole from Rembrandt. Took little pieces of them, took the color here, the pose here, the style here, and he came up with something totally unique and original and breathtaking. Okay? So don't be afraid to steal. Most artists will tell you that. Just make sure that when you steal, you're putting your own spin on it. Okay? And cite your sources. No. Another reason why we're afraid to, okay, we'll move on. Does anybody know what time we started? 7:20. Okay. Another reason why we're afraid to fail is because a lot of times when we're being creative, we have to break rules. Okay? We have to go against the grain, go outside the box. Okay? Some rules are good and they work. Okay? For thousands of years, the ancient Egyptians produced images of pharaohs that looked pretty much exactly the same. There's over 1,000 years between these two things, and yet they look the same. It worked. It was an effective way for them to communicate something about the power of the king. Why change it? They didn't need to change it. A lot of people look at Egyptian painting, you know, where you see people like walk like an Egyptian. I can't do it right, you know, like this. And they go, oh, those Egyptians, they were terrible artists. What were they doing? You know, the flat people. They were doing it because it worked. They did it for thousands of years. These people built pyramids. If they had wanted to make somebody not look like this, they could have made somebody that didn't look like this. But that's what was working for them. And when it didn't work anymore, guess what? They weren't afraid to try something new. Okay? This was what the powerful, masculine, muscular pharaoh looked like for thousands of years. Then this guy comes along, and all of a sudden his shoulders droop, and his belly poofs out, and his hips get wide. And there are a lot of theories about why this happened. Some people say, well, he had something medically wrong with him, and they were trying to make it look like him. Well, if you've noticed, all of those other things looked exactly the same. So it's not like they were trying to like necessarily make everybody, the statue, look like the guy. They're trying to make the statue look like the other statue. So, you know, there's some debate about that. Some people, he had a medical condition. And other people argue that it no longer suited the needs. There was some other need there. And this is a king who ended up revolutionizing Egyptian society and introducing a new, basically, not a new religion, but a new focus, religious focus. They needed something else. So whatever the reason why they did it. They responded to a need. Because something could work for a really long time, but eventually it's not going to work anymore. Or it might still work, but guess what? It could probably work better. So if there's something that's working and it's fine, revisit it. Because you might be able to come up with a better way. Circumstances change, resources change, people change, we all change. So the way that we do something, if that doesn't change, that makes no sense. Okay? So sometimes you have to break the rules because they don't make sense anymore. Sometimes you break the rules because the rule is based on a value that you don't agree with, right? Some rules are arbitrary. Has everybody here seen Dead Poets Society? Sure? They're in the classroom, Robin Williams says, rip that preface out of the books. And everybody's like, well, I don't want to rip up a book. That's sacrilege, right? But they do it. Why does he do it? To help them to see that the way that they've been looking at it, the rules that they've been following, were established by people who thought in a certain way, and that wasn't the only way to think. There were other ways to think. You might value something else. Julia Margaret Cameron was a photographer in the 19th century who took these gorgeous photographs that are a little bit fuzzy and out of focus. And she talks about how, you know, when she was taking her photographs, she adjusted the focus until it looked right to her, until she saw what she wanted to see. And she says, you know, I didn't turn the focus all of the way that people, photographers, insist that you should. I stopped short of it. Because that worked for her. You know, that rule of sharp, clear lines in a photograph was not what she wanted to produce. So she did something different. Learn the rules so you can break them like an artist. Sometimes rules are there for a reason, right? They are a good foundation to work from. Sometimes, you know, we learn things in a certain way to learn how to do it, and then once we know how to do it, we can feel freer to play with it and experiment. I used to teach writing, and, you know, kids would write these crazy sentences. This was in college. They'd write these crazy sentences, and I'd say, this sentence makes no sense. And they'd say, well, I was trying to be poetic. And I'd say, okay, but you don't know how to write. You can't be poetic until you know how to write. So learn how to express an idea clearly that people understand, and then work on making it poetic, okay? But first, learn how to express your idea clearly. Okay, so sometimes you have to learn the rules. Picasso, Picasso, Picasso. You know, a lot of people look at modern art and they go, oh, I could do that, or, you know. Most modern artists were formally trained, okay? They're not drawing scribbles or, you know, filling a canvas with all one color because they don't know how to do something else. It's because they choose to do something else. They're breaking the rules to innovate. A totally radical example of this is Marcel Duchamp, who back in the early 20th century said, you know what, I'm not just going to break the rules. I'm going to totally like flip the rules around and like twirl them on my arm and then throw them out a window. Okay, because what he did is he changed the question. He said, I'm not going to ask, well, how can I make art different? I'm going to ask the question, what is art? And I'm going to answer it, art is whatever I, the artist, say it is. Art is about the creative act. It's about the creative idea. So if I take a urinal and I sign a fake name on it and put a date on it and say that it's art, it's art. You know where you can see this urinal today? In a museum. Okay? It worked. Totally radical, but it worked. And it was, you know, in any art history textbook that you ever read, you're going to read that this was a turning point in the modern era for art. Because then all of a sudden, people were experimenting with what is art, and you get performance artists, and you get, you know, people who are using found objects to create things. You're getting people who are making abstract works, okay? Because they're now questioning what is art, and it's led to all kinds of different art. MoMA would not exist, okay? Well, it probably would exist, but it wouldn't look the way that it looks. It would look different, because somebody else would have been creative and come up with a different idea, okay? But this is kind of a turning point. Ridicule, criticism, okay? We're all afraid at some point that somebody is going to ridicule our idea, right? Or laugh at us or say, that's bad, compare us to somebody else and say, you're not as good, whatever it is, okay? Artists, professional artists, deal with this all the time. Manet, when he painted Olympia in like 1868 or 9 or something, the critics saw this and they wrote things about it like, she's a yellow-bellied odalisque, and this is a vile painting, and it is art sunk to its lowest level. And, you know, that hurt. Manet didn't like it. He didn't like to be constantly insulted, but he kept doing it anyway, because he had a vision. And he said, you know what? I'm going to keep doing this. It sucks. You know, and it does. It sucks when somebody rejects your idea or criticizes your idea, okay? You know, we have to all own that. But sometimes, if you're really committed to that idea, it can lead to something else. So Manet kept doing what he was doing, and he inspired another generation of artists that we now know as the Impressionists. And when Monet painted Impression Sunrise and showed it at the alternate salon that they created, the Impressionists created, because they didn't want to show with the rule art, they were showing with the rule breaker art, people criticized him. Okay, and they called it impressionism, that word was used as a derogative term. It wasn't something good. Now, you know what the most popular section of almost any art museum is? The Impressionist section. Go check out how many calendars of Impressionists are in the bookstore, if you have a bookstore anymore. Sometimes your idea is actually going to be really good, but maybe you're ahead of your time. Okay? So that's one way of thinking about it when you get rejected. Not all the time. Sometimes your idea is going to suck. And then, you know what? You get feedback, and you make your idea better. We talked about this, right? Sharing your ideas. You can get feedback. You guys know about this iteration upon iteration upon iteration. You get feedback, try it again. Okay? So, you know, your idea might be ahead of its time, or it might just need some more work. And that's okay. Okay? Just because somebody doesn't like the idea doesn't mean they don't like you. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means they don't like that idea. And there are a lot of reasons why they might not. Anytime we put an idea out there, it's scary. We're making ourselves vulnerable. We're opening ourselves up to this kind of judgment and criticism. That's scary, because, like I just said, you know, it's hard not to take that stuff personally. But here's another way you can think of it. if one idea gets rejected, then maybe that idea wasn't meant to happen. Maybe you were destined for something else. Maybe there's another idea out there that is waiting for you. Ghiberti, Brunelleschi. Ghiberti, Brunelleschi. They both entered a competition in 1401 in Florence to create panels for the Florentine baptistry. Okay? Ghiberti won that competition. Brunelleschi did not. Now, he could have gone home and cried and said, they didn't like what I did. They like Ghiberti better than me. I have to stop being a goldsmith. No, he didn't. Well, maybe he did for like a night. Maybe he ate some gelato and then he felt better. And then he went on to build this. He entered another competition 10 years, a little bit more than 10 years later, to build a giant dome, the biggest dome that had ever been built in Western civilization. Okay? He was not a trained architect. He was a goldsmith. But he entered this competition and he won it because he had all of these ideas. He was like, well, you know, this is an almost impossible project, but I have this idea. I'm going to build a double dome, and that's going to help support the weight. And, you know, oh, we don't have enough timber to build scaffolding to get to the top. Well, I'm going to build some sort of lever that, like, you know, whatever you call those things, that raises things up to the top so that we don't need scaffolding. Okay? There were all kinds of issues that he had to solve. But the point is, he built the dome of the Florentine cathedral, the Duomo, if you know. Duomo, by the way, just means dome. Every city in Italy has a Duomo. So if you say the Duomo, you're not necessarily talking about this one. Okay? But what do we remember? Has anybody ever seen, raise your hand if you've seen this before, this dome. Raise your hand if you'd seen the panels from the baptistry. No, nobody had. Okay? So Brunelleschi took that rejection, he was inspired by it, and he moved on to something bigger, and people would probably argue better. Okay? So another thing to do with that. Final fear. Anybody pick up your white sheet of paper, turn it over so that the word that you wrote on it is not facing you. Anybody afraid of looking at a blank piece of paper? Yeah? Why? You can't think of what to do. A lot of people were saying that when they said they don't feel creative. They need direction, they need structure, they need to be told what to do. A blank page can be scary because, one, the possibilities are infinite. I could do anything on this page. And if you can do anything, it's really hard to say, well, okay, I'm going to do this one thing. And on the other hand, there are all these fears of failure and breaking rules and showing your work to people and being criticized, right? All of these things. And now you're staring at a blank piece of paper, and there's so much pressure that maybe all your ideas fly out of your head. You can't think of anything, right? Well, one response to this that I sort of like is Chuck Close's. Inspiration is for amateurs. Just show up and get to work. Just write on the paper, right? It sounds hard. It sounds like, oh, well, I have to like overcome that fear, but it's not. It's easy, right? Jasper Johns, another artist, said, just take an object, do something, and then do something else to it. So what I want you to do on your white paper is do something to it. Don't think about it, just do something. Close your eyes if you have to. Make a dot. Rip the corner. Ball it up. First thing that comes to your mind, just make a mark. It doesn't have to be a picture. It can be one little line. Okay? Now stop. Stop whatever you're doing. Do something else.
Different than our original plan?
Yeah. Oh, I'm missing a picture. Okay. Romare Bearden said, you know, art is like creating a melody. You put down one color, and it calls for an answer. So you put down one line, respond to your line. Respond to your line. Okay? Again, it could just be a mark. Okay? Stop. Okay? You're filling up the page. Maybe you're filling up the page and you're not happy with where it's going. Or maybe I said stop and you went, oh, all my ideas just flew out of my head. How am I going to get more ideas? The first important thing to remember is that you started. And once you start thinking creatively, you're more likely to continue thinking creatively and acting creatively and doing creatively. Okay? You got to start, and then it takes on a life of its own, especially if you practice. Okay? And there are ways that you can practice being creative. There are techniques that you can use. And the one I'm going to talk to you about in like 5 minutes, because my time is almost up, is one that I learned when I was like in 3rd grade. And I have remembered it to this day. That is how impactful it has been in my life. Okay, I think about it, well, I don't think about it all the time now, but when I think about how I think, I say, it's because of that. This is why I think that way. SCAMPER, it's an acronym. I'm going to walk you through the pieces of it. Okay? So has anybody heard of SCAMPER before? Okay, I did not make this up. I am stealing someone's idea, and I am admitting it readily. But I'm also going to tell you that I altered it. I made it my own. I'm not going to tell you where. You'll see if you go online. SCAMPER. Oh my God, where are my pictures? Oh man, they're supposed to be, okay, well now we're really going to have to use our imaginations, which is a part of creativity. Substitute, which means ask yourself, what can I exchange for something else? Can I, Roy Lichtenstein has a picture, a portrait, where he replaces the guy's head with a block of cheese. You would probably like that one if you haven't seen it. Okay? Yeah, cheese. The picture that you're supposed to be seeing right now was a telephone that Salvador Dali cut the receiver off of, and put a lobster on top of. Okay? Substitution. What I want you to do is you've got a whole bunch of things underneath your chair. All different kinds of things. I want you to make a substitution. I don't care if it's on the paper that you currently have. I don't care if it's on one of the other things that you find under the chair. Just substitute something for something else. And there's tape and there's glue, and if you don't have any, share. There's everything that you need is under your chair. You know who was really creative? MacGyver. He wasn't an artist. Well, he was an artist because we're all artists. But he was not an artist by profession, but he was. He thought like an artist. He had totally tapped into his creative potential. So think of yourself as MacGyver and make a substitution. But don't blow anything up. Don't think about it too hard. Just do it. Make a substitution. I'm going to keep going so that we have time, but as I'm talking, you can continue your substituting. Okay? That's a substitution.
I know.
If you're using that color and you switch to that color,
Oh no, I switched to caps.
that's a substitution too. That was totally creative. In fact, that was super creative because you thought outside the box and you said, I'm not even going to do it on my page. I'm just going to switch my lids. Then it's okay. This is the thing about creativity. There is no supposed to. Okay? There's no supposed to. You're supposed to do whatever you want. You did it entirely right. I give you an A+.
Ooh, thanks.
Anybody who actually did something, I give you an A+, because there's no wrong way to do this. The C, which does have pictures, combine. Put two things together. What two things can I put together to have this serve my purpose better or more? Or to make a more interesting picture, if that's what I'm doing. Combine two things. Use the things under your chair and combine. Excellent. Combine can also mean collaborating. So if you want, turn to your neighbor and ask them if you can combine something into your work that they've been doing. This painting right here, this painting, Prometheus Bound, you're not going to want to miss this because this is a good factoid if you're ever in the Philadelphia Museum of Art. This painting right here, Prometheus Bound, Rubens is always credited with it. Rubens painted the body of Prometheus, but you know what? He didn't feel like he was any good at painting animals, so he brought in his friend Franz Snyders, and Franz Snyders painted the eagle. Okay? Combined. They combined forces. So combining can be about materials, it can be about resources. Or it can be about bringing people together to combine their talents. So combine something.
Talk about creative. Hold on.
Surprise.
Alter your perspective. A. This is another Dead Poets Society reference. Okay? What does he have the kids do at the end? Stand up on their desks. Give them a different perspective. When you change your perspective, you see things differently. If you see things differently, you might have new ideas. So everybody alter your perspective somehow. Stand up, get under your chair, move into another seat, stand on your head. I don't care. Alter your perspective. And then do something else. Oh, I'll go back to this modifying. Georgia O'Keeffe took a closer look at flowers. She altered her perspective. Montaigne thought about, well, what if I paint something on the ceiling and I make it look like I'm looking up into it? Okay? Alter your perspective. It might change things. Modify. Modify is a big one. It covers a lot of different areas. If you need to change something, if you need to think of a new solution, there are lots of things you can do. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can make it taller, you can make it wider, you can make it a different color. You can change the landscape. That's me with a giant apple core by Gary Oldman, who liked to make giant stuffed food. Okay? There are lots of ways that you can modify. In fact, you could argue that everything that you've done to your page so far was some sort of modification. Okay? But changing it. Twist it, squash it, ball it up, all ways that you can modify. Put to other uses. Put to other uses you can think of as a lot of different ways. You could think of it as this artist, El Antasui, who's a Ghanaian artist, thought of it. He took bottle caps from liquor bottles and he made this out of it. Okay? You can repurpose things to make other things. Ah, my pictures are gone. What was supposed to be here was a Van Gogh painting. And then an umbrella from MoMA with Van Gogh's picture on the inside of it, putting it to other uses. Okay, the people at MoMA sat down and they said, what else can we do with this painting besides just have it on a wall? Well, it can make people happy when they're walking in the rain. And they made an umbrella out of it. And a little zippered pouch. I think I might have had a picture of the zippered pouch. Put your piece of paper to another use. Think about it. If you wanted to do something besides just look at it, what could you do to it? Mask, hat, like it. What else? Paper airplane, love it. Put it to another use. A necklace that doesn't actually fit. Nice job, Mike. Perfect. Okay, there are lots of ways that you can put things to other uses. Eliminate. Take something away. You can reduce something by taking it down to its bare essentials. You can remove a piece of it, like Yinka Shonibari did with his heads. Take something away, reduce it, eliminate something, erase something. Remove something from your work. We're almost to the end. Oh, my pictures are missing again, and these were really good ones. I don't know what happened. Reverse or rearrange, okay? What does that mean? You can rotate something. You can flip it the other way. You can cut it up into pieces and put them back together another way. reverse, rearrange. So, scamper, substitute, combine, alter your perspective, modify, put to other uses, eliminate, reverse, rearrange. This is not just a technique that you can use for art. You can use this for any time you need to think of a way to solve a problem, anytime you need to come up with an alternative solution to something, you can try this. It doesn't have to be about art. You just ask yourself the questions. How can I look at, this is going to help you to look at things differently. And creativity is first about looking at things differently. Okay, if we go back to that definition I put up the first time, it's about looking at things differently, coming up with alternate solutions. These are ways that you can do that. So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to think of some problem that you're having at work. Maybe it's a technical problem. Maybe it's a problem with a person. Maybe it is a problem with your chair because one of the legs is too short. Think of some problem that you're having. Okay, write it down on your paper. Go ahead, write it down. There's stuff to write with. This is the last thing I'm making you do because I'm running 5 minutes late. I told you I was bad at time management. I wasn't lying. Write down your problem. And it could be something that you think is a problem that nobody else would. Like, you know, maybe my chair's too hard. Well, I don't care, but it's a problem for you, you know. Doesn't matter what the problem is, write it down. What I want you to do is I want you to take this with you, and tomorrow, after you've gotten up and done your exercise and eaten your breakfast and done all those things that we heard about an hour ago, I want you to look at this paper, and I want you to think about scamper, and I want you to try to use this technique to solve your problem, to come up with some possible solutions, okay? Ask yourself the questions. So, if we want to be creative, or we want to be more creative, if we want to tap deeper into our creativity, if we want to expand it, we have to do 3 things. We have to face our fears. We might have to use techniques to cultivate our creative thinking, and we need to practice. We need to do it all the time until the only way we think is creatively and logically and all the other things that go into thinking. But where it's not something that you have to think about, am I this or am I not this, right? It's just part of the way that you think, okay? That's what I want you to think about. Practice it, and eventually, when I come back next year, Elise, and I say, are you creative? You're going to say to me, yes, I am. I switched those pen tops. That was a creative answer, okay? And you're going to say, yes, I'm creative, and you're going to say, I'm not a maybe anymore. I am creative. Everybody, say it. I am creative. I won't make you stand on your chair because these don't look stable and they might fall over. Okay? And finally, I will leave you with this thought. Once you can overcome your fears, once you are thinking creatively, a blank page can become about possibility. A heap of clay can be about possibility. A problem, if we think about a blank page as a problem, it's blank. It's not supposed to be blank, right? It's a possibility. That's exciting, okay? So think about your problems as exciting challenges to overcome with your creative thinking, okay? And that's what this quote is all about, okay? Don't be scared by the page. Be exhilarated by it. Thank you. I will shut up now. I appreciate your attention and enthusiasm. And don't worry about cleaning up.